What if the future we want, the technology that will remake our world, is already inside of each of us? What if the future is our brain, unlocked? We see a future where patients with chronic illnesses find new independence, where we can monitor brain health data in real time and share it with the doctor, transforming data into customized treatments in the process. We're building a future where our brain can tell us when it's tired, so we'll always know when we need to take a break, to boost productivity and happiness. We see a future where music listens to us, to the way we're feeling at a neurological level, with custom playlists curated for our current mood. We're building a future where we even communicate differently, by thinking, not typing, turning thoughts into inputs, where we can tell our loved ones we're safe, just by thinking it. At Neurable, we're harnessing the power of the human brain to build the future we see. Not smaller screens and thinner bezels, not more technology, more human technology. We believe the future is a place where technology works for us while receding into the background. At Neurable, we're not waiting for the future. We're building it into the devices we use every day. Neurable, the mind unlocked.
My name is Dr. Ramses Alcaide. I'm the CEO of Neurable, and we make everyday brain-computer interfaces.
I love as a marketing person, I am a big fan of a nice, crisp, this is what we do. This is what we do. And then it opens up to so many things. So mind you, we're going to talk about the business, but we're going to talk about you first. But I'm going to start with your teeth are beautiful. Do you have dentists in your family? Your teeth are stunning.
I mean, we both have beautiful hair and teeth, so we're crushing it. Let's be honest, you know.
I love it. All right, so Ramses is great because he gravitated towards me because we were both in Forbes. I go in an honoree of the 2022 class, which I'm loving in so many different ways. And just anyone that wants to focus on promoting themselves, promoting their products, and promoting how they're going to help other people is, I mean, always a round of applause for me. But I always say, in order for us to understand why you are doing what you are, like what you're doing, why do you care to help a larger society? We need to understand who you are and where you are. So where are you presently, but where are you from? And let's just talk about from the moment that you came onto this planet to, let's bring us to college.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born in Mexico. You know, my parents were both educators in Mexico. And due to family illness issue that happened, my parents actually had to immigrate to the United States, which had its own risks and rewards. And they literally sacrificed their own careers in order to have me and my sister have a greater opportunity. But education has always been an important part of my life. When I was about 8 years old, one of my uncles got into a trucking accident and he lost both his legs. And it motivated me, seeing him go through this struggle, to dedicate my life toward developing technology for people to continue being an equal part of this world. And that took me to studying electrical engineering in undergraduate school, focused on prosthetic development, and then working on brain-computer interfaces in graduate school at the University of Michigan in order to integrate brain-computer interfaces, which is just a fancy way of saying technology that can read your brain activity and help you control or use technology so that we can help more individuals.
I love how you just went really fast through this and not realizing we have time to talk. I'm going to give you an opportunity to really dive into things. So let's just start from educators. How is it being in a home of educators? And what did your parents teach in Mexico?
Yeah, my dad taught economics and my mom taught anthropology. They are both incredibly passionate about education, making sure that, you know, which is kind of crazy because when they came to the United States, they essentially gave up their careers because their credits didn't transfer. So you have these incredibly brilliant people who are now working as, you know, custodians in order to make sure that me and my sister have the opportunity to grow up have an education, be in the United States. Now they're finally re-pursuing their dreams of education. But, one thing I say is we all have our privileges, some more than others. The privilege that I had was that my parents knew about school and they valued it. Right. I look at other Hispanic individuals who grew up in the same difficult neighborhoods as I did. And they're not necessarily in great situations, right? But it was because I had this privilege of, even if it was just this like tiny gem of having parents who cared a lot about education and cared a lot about family structure, I without that, I don't think I would be where I am right now.
I 100% agree with you. So I'm first generation born in America, conceived in Haiti. My mom was 8.5 months pregnant when we came to America. Education has been around us forever. And my dad was a tailor in Haiti. My mom she was a beautician in Haiti. Came here, my mom became a chef, and my dad worked at HB Hood, which is a dairy company, for 25 years. When kids were outside playing, we had to practice our handwriting. We had to sit and read chapters he saved so much money and bought the encyclopedias where we had to learn and read every single part of the encyclopedia, those Britannica books. And when our friends are outside playing, they're like, I go, not until you learn studies. And so education has always been a part for me, because education is the key to everything. The key, reading, education, being curious is the key to everything. And when you have parents that understand the value of that, it opens up your opportunity of what you want to do, but it makes you curious in regards of the possibilities are endless.
For sure.
And I think that's a great gift for you.
Yeah, for sure. And, even just seeing, and I'm sure that you can probably empathize with this, seeing how much your parents are working and what they're trying to do for you to get something that maybe at that time you don't necessarily understand why it's so valuable, but seeing them hustle and work so hard for you to have that opportunity, it changes you as a child, and it also teaches you that, and this was, at least in my perspective, right? I can't just grow up and go work at my dad's company. That wasn't an avenue that was open to me. And so it's one of these things where you have to forge your own way. And the only way to do it is through education. That is the only powerful tool that's open to us, as people in this situation, right? And not a lot of individuals get that wisdom throughout their lives.
It's funny that you even mentioned that. So my interns, I had interns last summer during the height of the pandemic, and a few of them were just finding the internship to be very, very difficult. I'm not an easy boss. I push you. I want to challenge you.
Me too. Quit. I get it.
Yeah, and they quit. And my international students, or my children, my interns that have parents from other countries, are like, quitting is an option? We didn't know quitting was an option. What? That's an option? I'm like, it's not an option. But the mindset for them were even though I'm an intern and I watch my parents and I listen to them, but I don't really pay attention because I'm still trying to figure out who I am. They know that quitting is not an option.
Right.
It's not
that
okay.
Immigrant hustle. I'm telling you, it's real. It's a real thing. It's my parents didn't quit. I didn't see them quit. It's and the same thing is true. I could have quit, this dream, this vision, this moment that was given to me. And every single time I am, I think back at I went to go see Hamilton recently, and he's talking about getting his one shot, and it's that's the immigrant hustle right there,
Yeah, I mean, I'm Haitian, so I have the Haitian hustle T-shirt because, it's huge. It's huge. It's huge.
For sure.
Talk about what age were you when you came to America?
I was about 5 years old.
Do you remember the time? For me, although being born here, I was in the Haitian bubble. Outside, I was having a tough time learning how to speak English. Come to find out I was dyslexic. So dyslexic, as well as I'm speaking 2 different languages, French and Haitian Creole. And then outside, I'm in English. So I'm in America, and then I'm in Haiti. Did you even see the differences for you when you were at your age? And how old is your sister, older or younger?
She's older than me, but yeah, I mean, I remember what happened when I was 5, pretty vividly. I remember coming to the United States and obviously not knowing anything, right? Not knowing how to speak. We moved to Washington, which at that time didn't necessarily, at least on the west side of Washington, didn't have necessarily the strongest Hispanic population. So, I remember being bullied as a child because I didn't speak the language, or, one of the things that is still with me. And now I look back on it and I laugh. I remember I brought this Mexican sandwich. It's called a torta, and they are amazing, by the way. Like, they're awesome, right? And I remember it had like avocados and beans and steak. And like, I was eating this in school and I was just so like, I mean, it was a killer sandwich. And the kids were making fun of me because it wasn't ham and cheese. And I was like in my head, I was like, are you serious? Like how, and like for a time in my life, like I felt ashamed whenever I brought a torta, now I think to myself, like, even at that time as a kid too, a part of me was just like, this doesn't compute. Like, how am I the one doing something wrong here? I mean, do you see the sandwich? This thing is like mind blowing. Like, I've tasted ham and cheese. It's nothing, right? And so like I have a lot of these like key memories, like running away from ESL class because I didn't want to go to it, and all, so there's a lot of these kind of milestone moments, and I struggled in school until, similar to like your dyslexia, I had ADHD and I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Right. But my mom knew that I was a really smart kid, and she's like, you're clearly failing at school for some reason, but then you can also do your sister's like homework, and you've never even studied it. Like, this doesn't make sense, right? And it's just, some things interested me, some things don't, right? And so there was a lot of these kind of crazy moments when I was younger.
It's funny because how old are you?
I am 36 now.
You had to think about that. How funny are you? You're like, I think
time, age doesn't matter at a certain point in life. It's like, who cares?
So I turned 53 in 2 weeks. And
I don't believe you're not a day over 25.
It's lotion. But it's funny how the stories that you're sharing, same exact. I mean, like, literally, like, there's no disparity of like stories where I remember seeing cold cuts. I'm like, so let me get this straight. You eat your meat cold? Like, wait, what? You shave it? It's in the refrigerator for days and you eat it cold on cold bread? No, this is not like peanut butter and jelly.
And I'm the weird one here, right?
So those are the moments like where I'm with you, where all the different things that you're saying, like, I go, oh God, it hasn't changed. I remember speaking to a group of young students through the government here in Massachusetts has this like group where they bring all the immigrant kids, and these kids were like 12, 13, 14, 15. And as I was telling my speech and sharing these stories, they're like, yep. I'm like, oh my God, our stories never change. Immigrant kids, our stories never change, which I'm happy about. And I'm happy that we exist, so that way they can say like, look, we survived. We survived it. You can survive it too. Being that person that speaks for your parents and being that person that advocates for your family, I love it. What made you decide to, I mean, so you come to America, you're in Washington State, not Washington, DC, you are Washington State. What made you decide the path? So you're not doing great in school, you're clearly smart, you're clearly inquisitive, but what was it where it was like, I go, you know what, I'm going to go the route of engineering? Because yes, we know the rule, doctors, engineer, lawyers, we know, I mean, international kids, we know that, but you didn't have to go that route. You could have gone anywhere you wanted to go. What intrigued you about engineering?
Yeah, actually, interestingly, my parents wanted me to become a soccer player. I was very good at soccer. So like all signs should have pointed toward soccer. My uncle thought that I was an entrepreneur though. And to be honest, I never thought that until like now. And I'm just like, wow, he was totally right. Right. But what ended up happening, like I mentioned, my uncle got into a trucking accident, right? And he's actually an engineer. He studied chemical engineering. He actually repairs his own prosthetics at this point too, which is kind of crazy to think about. But like, I just saw him going through what he did, after he got his prosthetics done, how he solved his own problems. I essentially saw that engineering was a superpower, and I didn't know how I was going to use the engineering to help, individuals like my uncle. But I knew that whatever that was, I got to go there. It's kind of like, imagine somebody said that like Superman Academy is real, and you're just like, I don't know how I'm going to save the world, but I know I got to go to that academy and like get some laser vision or something, take flying 101, like, I'll figure it out later. And that's kind of how like it all came together, going to college and getting that engineering background.
What did you want to do with it? I mean, like, I go, yes, all right. I've witnessed, like, I mean, because I usually ask like, who in your family is an entrepreneur? I go, and your uncle seeing that in you well before you even started in yourself. I mean, actually, which is, what did he see in you? Because you hear the stories about the Bill Gates where like, I go, yeah, I broke into places just to get to a large computer, or the Warren Buffett's where I went to the Five and Dime and I stole golf balls and I sold sold them individually. What was it that he saw in you? You saw him, you saw what he was doing, but he must have seen something that you were doing along the way.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I have a lot of those stories as well too, which is kind of crazy. And now I look back and I think to myself, like, it was rather obvious. I remember when I was, around 9 or 10 years old, my parents bought me a computer, and the first thing I did was take it completely apart. And my mom,
a brand new computer.
a brand new computer. She was absolutely furious, and like I got in trouble for it. And she's like, "Why did you do this?" And I was like, "Well, how am I going to know how to fix this computer unless I take it apart?" Right? Like, to me, in my head, I was like, how does this not make sense to you? It's like that torta again, right? I'm like, how does this not connect? Am I the only one living in this universe? And essentially what I did is, once I learned kind of how the computer worked, I posted up signs around my neighborhood for computer repair. And so I'd show up.
Wait, hold. You didn't say one thing. Did you put it back together and did it work?
Yes, I did. It worked.
Okay.
And it
Okay, good.
came together. Yeah.
How long did it take?
It took hours at that point, because, it's like things didn't necessarily fit right sometimes. Like I found a missing screw and I was like, uh-oh, and I had to go back and like reopen it. It was a whole thing. But it was that experience of learning that I really wanted, right? And then what I did is I would put up signs for computer IT repair, essentially. And I'd show up and, they'd see me and my dad and they'd be like, "Oh, how cute, you brought your son." And he's like, "Actually, I don't know anything about computers. I'm just here to make sure that like he's safe." And then I'd like go into people's houses and I'd repair their computers at like 8 or 9 years old, essentially. And then
are you for real? Like, what?
Yeah. It was kind of crazy. Yeah.
This isn't, all right, wait. All right. So I need to go back a little bit. When you said it took a couple of hours, I'm thinking a couple of days. What do you mean a couple of hours?
Well, you take out the graphics card, you take out, you see where the processor is at, the RAM and all these components. And then you kind of understand how abstractly it goes together. And so I would go to another computer, and sometimes there'd be like a learning portion because I didn't know how to handle a new computer. But certain aspects were similar. And so, that transfer learning essentially enabled me to bring that information out there. But going back to what my uncle was saying, is he kept seeing me do things where I would learn something and then create value out of it. For example, I learned that yo-yos needed to be lubricated. Yep. And yo-yos were a really big fad back then. And so I used to charge people to lubricate their yo-yos, right? And it would cost me like $1 to get the oil, and I would charge them $1 per yo-yo. And so, I'd end up making a good amount of cash. Now, I didn't save it well. But
that's
like,
you kept seeing part of the story.
Yeah, that's a whole nother learning process, But it was like he saw a lot of these moments where I would learn a new concept and then use it to create value. And so he was like, "This kid is going to be an entrepreneur." And I just thought I was just playing, right? I was like, I'm just having fun. I learned about computers. I want to go do something with it. I learned about yo-yos. I want to go do something with it. And there's a lot of these kind of moments. The last one I'll share is I used to go to the Boeing surplus store, and they used to sell pallets of computers.
Wait,
and they were all
store?
The Boeing surplus store. It's like Boeing is this airplane company in Washington.
Oh, Boeing. Oh, okay. Boeing.
Yeah.
Like, as in like a Boeing, the plane. Okay.
Yeah. And so they would basically sell off their computers in pallets for $25 a pallet. But most of their computers didn't work, right? It's like they'd upgrade the whole thing, and then they'd sell the pallet. And so I'd buy them, and then I'd fix like 5 out of the 10 broken ones that were there. I'd make 5 of them work, and then I'd sell each one for $100, right? Because I don't need that many computers, but I enjoyed building them. I enjoyed fixing them. And so like kind of just secondhand, I would do entrepreneurial work from the work that I was doing, that I was just enjoying myself with.
I love that you didn't even know the word entrepreneurial, but you just like, just learn. It's it again, comes from your parents that I am craving learning.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's like the best part of like your parents brought that education into your mindset. You craved it and you just weren't getting enough of it. And especially when you're in school and they're saying you're not smart. And I say this with my quote fingers. They say that you're not smart, but you're just doing you're just like doing your thing, which is
I remember
great.
One time my mom got a call from my principal, and they're like, "We think we should put your son in special education." And my mom goes to the school, and she's like, "By the way, we didn't have enough money for lawyers," but she's like, "If you do that, like my son is clearly intelligent. Look at his math scores. he clearly just does not care about the other classes. You know, it's like, and there's probably a reason why. And it's not, and when he does do his homework, he does really well. But what ends up happening is he's not doing his homework and he's not showing up for tests. So like clearly something's off, and special education is not that solution, right?
Yeah.
And the solution ended up sending me to college. So I ended up taking college classes while I was in high school, like freshman year. And like that was the thing that really excited me. I like the pace of the learning there. I like the you know, like that was more my style.
How was that for, I should say, well, it was twofold. One, for you at that age, your parents advocating for you. How was that for you at that time? Especially because like most kids' parents were like, I go, well, maybe we should put our kids in remedial. And how was it for the teachers where they were dealing with you and all of a sudden now you're in college?
Yeah, I mean, so it was one of these things where that's one of my other privileges, which is my parents, you know, really believed in me as a child, right? I think that I gave them way too many opportunities, and other people did too, to just say, hey, you know, he's going to be an underachiever his whole life. That's okay. You know, as long as he's happy, that's all we care about, right? But my parents always believed in me, even from the moment I was born. You know, that's the reason they called me Ramses, right? It's an Egyptian pharaoh, right? And so that was one of my privileges. You know, self-confidence from my parents and myself were not lacking. And it was one of these things where instead of just giving up on me, they said, let's iterate. Let's figure out how you like to learn, right? Let's figure out what pace. You know, you'd show up on Monday, you'd learn the lesson for the week, and then you wouldn't show up, you'd skip school the rest of the week. Like, why are you skipping school? And it's like, well, I'm not interested. Like, we're just covering the same math concept every single day for a week, right? That's not how I like to learn.
Right.
And so they were just like, all right, then why don't we just give you more classes worth of stuff to do? You know, and they took a very non-traditional approach. They thought, you know, I think it's very easy to say, like, just sit in class, right? And they said, well, what if we didn't have you sit in class? What if we had you sit in different classes every day?
Yeah.
Like, how would that impact you? And yeah, I'm really fortunate to have them. They're probably the most incredible people in my life. You know, I've had a lot of people like them who really believed in me, and I couldn't be here without them.
I'm going to challenge you by saying, stop saying privilege and saying gifts. You're like, I mean, you have the gifts. Because a privilege, I just feel like when someone says it's my privilege to be here, no, you earned it. You deserve to be here. You are given this amazing gift, and I go, and you have to embrace it. But it is not a privilege. You like freaking own this. So stop saying privilege.
No, I agree. The only reason I say it is because I want people to understand that it is a gift, but we can't forget that others don't have it too, right? And we can't forget, because I think it's very easy for us to just say like, oh, you know, this is the norm for everybody.
Oh,
right?
No, that I agree with in regards of even the way that I grew up. I was naive, where when I went to people's homes, I'm like, I go, your parents don't force you to practice your handwriting. Your parents don't tell you that whenever you go to any country, any location, any town, city, museums, churches, and the food, you have to understand the culture by going through these three things. And it was naive because, again, I was in the bubble. And so I still feel that it's not I think it's just more so like privilege is being overused. That the gift part is never overused. Whereas like it's what amazing people you have in your life that care. Amazing people that are in your life that care about you, that want to see the best of you. And I could imagine the conversations that your parents had. I mean, offline, they're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? I mean, and then just to come back like, okay, we got a plan. All right.
We're going to do the opposite of what they're telling us. We're going to try that too. You know, it's like, we tried what they told us. Now we're going to do the opposite and see if that works. You know, like that's really creative thinking. Like, I don't know if I could have, you know, thought about, what if we just make it harder for him? You know, it's like, all right, that worked, you know?
And we're surprised and we're like super psyched. How did your sister relate to it? Because I mean, I'm assuming your sister did not follow the same route that you did.
No, she basically, she was the good student. You know, she was the one who showed up in class every single day, you know, got great grades. You know, she was older than me. So like, I think the older sibling is always probably more responsible. You know, I was definitely way more rambunctious and energetic and you know, so yeah, I mean, we knew she was going to do great, and she's doing great already. So, you know, she studied law. She's doing awesome.
Nice. This is good. Okay. So now you're in college, you are like basically a senior in high school, but you're taking, did you graduate from high school? You're taking courses in a college, or did you just take both?
It was a special program that they normally gave to gifted students
Mhm.
in high school, where you could take college classes and start to earn some of those credits early on, essentially.
Okay.
And that's why it wasn't like the direct approach that the administrators at my school thought about, right? Because it's like, well, this is the program for the smart kids. Like, your son's not one of those. So, you know, but yeah, so I went to a junior college, took classes there. And then unfortunately, my grades weren't the strongest because of so many other previous years. So I ended up going to, after I graduated from high school, barely on time because of, credits, et cetera. I
Yep.
went to junior college for about 2 years, and then I transferred to the University of Washington afterwards. And
Nice.
that's where I studied electrical engineering.
UW is like, I mean, your campus is no joke. It's beautiful. I've been there
Oh,
many
it's gorgeous.
times. Like I've been there. It is such a beautiful location, beautiful people. I mean, I have friends that are in Washington and not Lansing, Mercer Island, and just like areas, surrounding areas of Seattle. And so we're always there. What was it like for you now? You're fully immersed in college. You now have a focus of what you want to do. How was like the figuring out exactly where I'm going to go from this point on?
Yeah, so I remember working with the prosthetics team at the University of Washington. And one of the big issues—
Wait, I'm sorry, pause. Because of your uncle, or because you were just curious about it at this point?
Because of my uncle. I wanted to build prosthetic devices. I wanted to something called control system. So how they're controlled. Like I wanted to engineer those kinds of devices. And so I ended up working with some of the prosthetic teams there, taking some of the classes, getting deeper into the whole spectrum of the field. And what I learned was that the way that our brain and our muscles connect to some of these prosthetic devices was very rudimentary. There had been some work in the 80s where they tried to really push this technology forward, but it didn't succeed. And I kind of saw a lot of these gaps, and I thought to myself, really, if I want to make transformational change in this area, I need to study the brain. I need to do brain-computer interfaces and figure out how to send these control signals to these devices.
There, I'm trying to think of what year this started, but I remember seeing this when I was in the media. So I started in the media in 1995, and a lot of being in Massachusetts, we have a lot of the great hospitals, Mass General, Brigham and Women, children's hospitals, but there were mechanisms that they were sticking to your temple that has your brain talking to a limb that is no longer working. And so they were trying to connect the brain to function with the technology to use on a prosthetic for whether your arms, your legs, etc. Was that the area that you were working on, or is it something dramatically different?
It's very similar to that. So basically using non-invasive, so non-surgical techniques, putting sensors on prosthetic devices, specifically lower limb amputations, because my uncle lost his legs essentially. And then using that data in machine learning to create a way of controlling the prosthesis in a very fluid, more natural way was essentially the type of work that I was working on.
When you're saying in a fluid way, what do you mean? I mean, because again, I read about these individuals. I've had people on our programs when I was in the media back in the day, and as well as you've seen it on TV. So when you say fluid, what are you meaning?
Yeah, what I mean by that is right now, if you see somebody, for example, walking with prosthetic limb, you'll see that they sometimes have a limp, right?
Yes.
Or that the way that they walk or their gait is a little bit abnormal.
It's like there's a lock to it. Like it's like, whereas like they walk and then it locks and then you have to it seems unnatural.
Exactly. And so the reason for that, I mean, there's numerous reasons, but a part of it is, how the prosthetic attaches to the person, how it's designed, the fact that we don't have input as to what the person necessarily wants. The way that they usually work is with combination of gravity and momentum. So, they swing their leg forward and then it kind of kicks forward, right? And then it locks in place and then they take that step, right?
Yep.
But what if you had a prosthesis that could record the intent of your muscles, for example, or record the intent from your brain as to what you wanted it to do? It would be more fluid, it would be more seamless. The walk would look more natural and it would feel more comfortable to an individual. And there would be less of a learning process in learning how to use your prosthesis. And so that's essentially the type of work that I wanted to do. I ended up changing a little bit of that work as I learned more about individuals and impairments that they had when I went to grad school. But essentially that was the area that I was very passionate about.
What was your degree in grad school?
I got a degree in neuroscience. So Dr. Ramses Alcaide. So very happy.
What was that? What was the learning curve for you when you went from I'm working on an engineer, prosthetics, and then now you're like, okay, I literally have to learn a whole entire different part of the body, and the brain is the most amazing muscle that sometimes I feel like the heart and the brain are neglected until something goes wrong. But yet when you're watching people discuss watching on TV or watching a documentary on brain surgery, every single part of your brain affects your being. Every single part. You touch one little moment of it, and it is like it's over. You hit your head, it's over. You even see with the comedian, that was on Full House that bumped his head, or we don't know how hard he hit his head, but then he died, and everyone's like, well, how hard did he hit his head? Or shaken baby syndrome. You hear all these stories, you're like, well, the person must have gotten really damaged. But people keep forgetting that we have a skull protecting this amazing muscle, and this muscle is very delicate. So what was learning curve for you when going from being an engineer to now literally you're working with the most amazing mechanism in the human body?
Yeah, definitely. And I 100% agree. It is the most amazing mechanism in the human body. It controls everything. It does so much. It's so valuable. It is literally our consciousness and self exists there, right? The part that made it an easier transition is because my job wasn't to work with all of the brain, right? That's just impossible in neuroscience. You have to kind of find which vertical of the brain you want to understand, whether it's addiction, how GABA receptors transmit information. It's like there's so many areas. For me, it was basically how we do control, and primarily large control responses. So moving a leg, taking a step, etc. Or in the case of my grad school work, how do we use signal processing to understand how a user wants to click on an item on a screen, right? And so while studying the brain was quite a transition, and I think I've gone through a lot of significant transitions in my life. I went from even just being a kid to studying engineering to going into neuroscience to owning my own company. Like those have all been learning moments, but I think because I've been very focused on the vertical slices that I believe were the most important for me to tackle, it's made it manageable.
Did you go from an academic to your business, or were there jobs in between?
No, this has been my passion since I was 8 years old. I did most of my jobs when I was a kid, and then from there, I've been on one job this whole time. So.
I think that's just like absolutely wild, because most people are like, I did these jobs in between, and then I started my company. You're like, nope, I did that when I was 8. This is good. So let's talk about the business. When did you decide? Because again, engineering, neuroscience, the whole entire concept of like creating and developing methods where people will succeed in their lives despite any of the obstacles that they're dealing with. But then owning a business is a whole different thing on top of that. So what year did you start your business, and how was it for you in regards of creating what you do? And let's talk about what you do, who's your perfect client, and how does it work?
Yeah, definitely. So I started my business about 7 years ago. It was at the University of Washington. I was working with children who had severe cerebral palsy and individuals with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. And the main technology that I was developing was a system for better understanding the brain, because picking up signals from the brain tends to be incredibly difficult. There's a lot of noise that prevents you from really understanding the signal. And we came up with a breakthrough where an individual, it used to take them about 2 to 5 minutes to respond. We were able to bring that down to about anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute, which was a huge step forward in the scientific field. And so once we had that development, I looked back and I was like, wow, this has the capacity to really start to create this dream that I've been trying to do since I was 8. So I took it to the tech transfer office and I was like, hey, like, how do we bring this everywhere? And they were like, okay, well, we can either license it out to all these pharma companies and figure things out, or you can do a startup company. And I was like, which one's faster? Like, how can I get this out ASAP? And they're like, well, you can make your own startup company. And I was like, all right, well, then I guess that's the next step. So, to me, entrepreneurship has never been like my quest. It's just I've been kind of doing it organically. And to a certain degree, it's just whatever the world demanded of me to solve next to keep pushing this dream forward is what I've been working on. And so, and that's really kind of been my focus.
Who's the best client for you? Because people talk about, look, I have this, like, I mean, I've been working on this project, I've been working on this service or product, and all of a sudden now I have this business. Who do you engage with the most? Like, if anyone that's listening to you right now, who do you want to actually find you and say, like, I go, oh my God, where have you been hiding all my life? I need to sit there and have you solve my days. How do they find you? How do they work with you? What are the outcomes for them, as well as for you, but what are the outcomes for them? Because you've worked so hard to develop this.
For sure. So, through the development of the technology that we built, some of the tech is still being used at the University of Washington right now to help individuals who are differently abled.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided, hey, what we really want to do is accelerate the world's ability to get everyday brain-computer interfaces. And by doing that, we can accelerate the whole field. It's kind of like how Tesla accelerated electric cars, and now the whole world is moving toward that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
great example, by the way. That was like a very, very good example. I like that.
And so with that, we focused on trying to make this technology as small and simple to use. And so we're able to integrate it essentially into a pair of headphones. And the headphones are able to measure your cognitive state to understand when you're burnt out. They're also able, you're able to use them to do very simple commands like advance music forward or play and pause, etc., using brain data. And so right now what we're doing is our clients are primarily wellness companies. So, they want a way to give somebody essentially a Fitbit for their mind. And to us, it's kind of like a Trojan horse. We want this technology out there in as many people as possible so that we can build this brain-computer interface of our dreams. But the first step is, how do you make a product that can go viral, that anyone can use, that really enables that technology to shine? And so these headphones essentially tell you when you should take a break during the day. They tell you when you're getting burnt out to the point that you're actually starting to make mistakes and your productivity is going down. And so our perfect clients are wellness companies who want to essentially give these as onboarding packages to their employees, or really any type of knowledge worker who wants to better understand their own cognitive self with technology.
So is this product, I mean, it's active now. We can use it right now, correct?
Yeah. Well, you can use it in our lab, and we're going to be shipping out the first batch very soon. Yeah, we're going through manufacturing right now.
It's kind of funny that, so I'm of the school where I still have the headsets with cord, and everyone's like, well, what, Jodi, you being who you are, why do you still have the cord? There's a part of me that just kind of doesn't want, I don't know, some electronic waves coming into my head. There's a part of me that I don't want to have beats. I don't want to have the pods. I don't want that. And now you're telling me that you have something that's going to tell me when I need to take a break or tell me when I'm burning out. What is that messaging that you use to curb my fears? because I have
Yeah.
one brain. I have one brain. I am like high energy. I don't want to lose my high energy. I mean, I sleep like a rock star. I don't drink coffee. And everyone's like, you're like this all the time. I go, I'm like this all the time without caffeine. So, so there are people that are just like, it's a brand new technology. I'm going to go for it. But there are people like me where like, I go, oh, I'm kind of afraid of anything that's dependent on satellites, depending on more things coming into my world, especially where don't stand in front of the microwave, you're going to get cancer. So how do you curb someone's fear? Especially the older individuals are the ones that probably need your product the most, and yet they're the most fearful of like, I'm a boomer, I'm not going that route.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And what I'll say is, first of all, we're not sending electrical signals into you at all, right? And we're not telling you when to take a break as much as we're letting you know when your brain is telling us that you should take a break, right? And I think that that's one of the biggest issues that we have, which is our brain is this amazing central hub of information, but we don't really have ways to tap into it in an everyday situation, right? Most individuals don't realize that they're so fatigued that they're about to fall asleep on the wheel of a semi truck, right?
Which is so often nowadays.
Yeah, it's crazy, and many individuals, for example, think of surgeons who have 26-hour shifts, right?
Or pilots.
Pilots, right? And so our brain, as incredible as it is also really difficult to understand, and so basically what we're saying is, here's a tool that, by the way, it looks like a pair of headphones.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't look like anything scary. You can just wear them as a pair of headphones if you want. They're not like some surgical device or some crazy headset. Just wear these headphones. And if you want to know a little bit more about yourself, kind of like I don't know if you wear like a Whoop or any one of those fitness trackers, like a Fitbit, but it's essentially like an Oura Ring or a Fitbit, but for your brain. And so if you find it useful to know that you did really great sleep, or how this food impacted your ability to focus, if you have those interests of really understanding yourself a little bit better, this is a tool to do it for the one organ that has not been tapped into yet, which is the mind. We have the least amount of data, but that's actually the most important system that we should get to know for ourselves.
I'm trying to figure out which one I want to ask first. I'm going to ask the safety first, and then I'll go back. Safety wise, we say that, or at least I say all the time, I say something and all of a sudden it appears on my phone. Like all of a sudden this advertisement is there. It's like, we know we're being listened to. So what are the concerns in regards to safety where like, yeah, you're tapping into my brain. You're getting all the information, the data on me, and now where does it go? And how's it being shared? Is it being shared? Is it just my data where this is my brain? This is how I'm reacting if I'm on coffee or if I'm on weed or whatever. Because I mean, obviously a lot of people are like a lot of countries, marijuana is now being legalized. So with this, where is all the information going? Because it's a tool for me, but it's a tool for whoever else.
Yeah, definitely. And so the data is going to us, and and you have access to it. You're actually, whoever wears the headphones is the owner of the data. So if they want to delete it at any time, they have the ability to do that. And just to give us a little bit of background on who us is, right? So most of us came from an academic background. So we follow HIPAA standards. We understand what identified and de-identified data is. One of my co-founder is actually is a leader in neuroethics. He's written chapters on neuroethics and how to handle data. Myself, I've been in a committee for neuroethics. And so the reason we do it that way is because we don't plan to sell your data. We don't want to. It's for you to use. It's for you to be empowered with. That's how we see it. And right now, we don't have a tool to really empower ourselves. And just to kind of give you a little perspective on it, when one of the projects I worked on when I was in undergrad was a sensor for detecting water usage in a house. Right now they do it by, person comes by.
Give your meter.
Yeah. But imagine you had one in your house, like a nest system, where it's just on top of your sink. It told you this is how much water you're using every day.
Yep.
And what we noticed is just by putting that small little LCD screen there and a sensor that told them how much water they're using per day, individuals reduced water by over 50%. So they didn't need to use as much water as they did, right? But just having that feedback, it created a positive change to the environment, to individuals being more conscious about water usage. What if we could do that for your mind, right? For you to understand, hey, maybe drinking isn't so healthy for me, right? Maybe getting longer sleep helped me a ton. Hey, working 8 hours straight isn't healthy for me. Maybe I should take a few 5 to 10 minute breaks throughout doing this. And so, so we're going to be the stewards of making sure your data is protected, but you are going to be the one who decides how to use the empowerment that comes from understanding your data.
I feel like there's a little bit of a guilt factor as well, because when you are talking about, I'm seeing the meter of how much water I'm being used, and I'm full disclosure, I waste water. I take showers, but the best ideas come in the shower. The best ideas,
right?
I go, I don't know how that works, but it's just, it's wonderful. But there's that guilt. But then now, like, my brain is being monitored in regards of, like, I'm drinking too much, or I'm eating too much chocolate, or I'm doing too many things, and it's the guilt factor. For some people, we're like, oh, now I feel guilty. Now I'm going to stop that. But then it triggers out a stress factor, because now I'm stressed out because I feel guilty. So is that, so I mean, does that help or hurt at that point? Or is it, again, just for you to have information, the tool, and the tools to help you live a better life?
Yeah, it depends how it's implemented. And I think one great example of this is Fitbit versus Apple, right? Okay. So if you have an Apple Watch, it tells you, oh, you should stand right now. Right? It kind of bothers you and tells you, hey, you should go do this. And a lot of people end up not using their Apple Watch because, they feel guilty about not being able to do their walk points for the day or their stand points for the day. Fitbit stays on your arm and just tells you how many steps you've taken. And so you end your day and you're just like, wow, I'm only 1,000 steps away from 10,000. Maybe I should just go walk outside for 20 more minutes. Right. And then
unless you said it and it tells you to get up.
Yeah, but the original Fitbit, that's essentially how it worked, right? It just told you how many steps you took. And when you complete that task, you get an endorphin rush because you feel accomplished, right? And so that's how we try to position our technology too, right? Which is like, hey, we know you want to go to work and crush it. As long as you're passionate about your job, that's clearly what you want to do. But being in Zoom meetings back to back is just not healthy for you. And so what we want people to do is we want people to know when they should take a break. Go take that break. Don't feel guilty about it. And actually we found a lot of individuals who said, having this system because it's the one telling me when I should take a break, it makes me not feel guilty because other people say, oh, the device told them to take a break. So I'm going to go, they're just listening to the device. It's not their fault, right? It removes the guilt of that. And then knowing, we actually had a student come in once and she's like, I got done with 4 assignments where it would normally take me an entire day to do 1, right? And so she finished her 4 assignments and then said, like, I'm going to take the rest of the day off, right? Imagine you go to work and you don't feel guilty about spending time with your kids and eating dinner with them after your work because you crushed it that day, right? And so how do we create more of those moments where individuals feel energized, feel accomplished, get things done, and then the rest of the time is theirs, right? And that's really what we care about.
We just spoke about 2 behemoths in regards of the security and just like the ownership and the goals and just like the yay moments. Another behemoth is insurance companies. So how does one purchase this and who does it go through? Because insurance companies it's a money-making industry. And yet this right here, where when you're talking about mental care, when you're talking about just like, even just when you talk about, we don't have enough information on the brain. Well, yeah, because if I ask for an MRI or a CT scan of my brain, unless you're dying, unless you've been like abstracted from a car, they're not giving it to you because insurance is like way too much money. So where does this fall into helping or hurting the insurance industry and more so helping the individual?
Yeah, I think that is a beautiful segue to discussing what one of our kind of key pillars are at the company, which is the word accessibility, right? We believe in accessibility and we don't just mean it, from individuals who are differently abled, which I think is an incredibly important point, which is how do you make technology easy to use? How do you make it usable across different populations? But price is also something that makes something accessible, right? The way that device looks makes something accessible. If it's a band that goes over your head or some crazy helmet, that's not accessible, right? That's something that you wear in private, right? And so, like I said, these are a pair of headphones. Next time you go buy your next Bose headphones, your next premium headphones for work, same price as that, $400. But now you have the ability to better understand yourself, right? And so one of our key goals is, how do we make this accessible, easy to get a hold of, easy to interpret the data? How do we remove these blockers? How do we enable scaling of brain computer interfaces instead of keeping them in their laboratory niche?
Laboratories or individuals that can afford it, I mean,
Yeah.
are the biggest things to think about. When you're thinking about, I mean, you're seeing, after the pandemic, you're seeing a lot of people with mental care. I mean, like, a lot of people could not and did not handle the lockdowns well. Pennsylvania is going into full lockdown. We have Shanghai that is in full lockdown. I mean, they've been in full lockdown for quite some time, and you're seeing people just like losing their minds in regards of, they're out in the streets. They're like, you know what, arrest me, because I'd rather be arrested than being in my home right now. And at least if I get arrested, I'm getting a meal. I can't get food in my house because I'm in lockdown. I can't go to the market. So at least if I'm in jail, I'm going to get fed. Where does your solution fall into what we've been dealing with the past 2 years with the pandemic, 2 years plus? Mental care is really, really in the forefront for the first time. It's no longer a stigma.
Sure.
And you see a lot of young people taking their lives, a lot of 25, 35-year-olds taking their lives. How do you play into this, and how can you expedite what you're doing to get into the mix of this?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right on that, which is, there's been an exacerbation of mental health issues because of COVID, lockdown, minimizing socialization with individuals, the fact that people are working from home, which means that sometimes people work longer hours. It means sometimes they're in environments where their kids are running around making noise, so it's harder to focus and concentrate. It means that you're in back-to-back Zoom meetings, and there's actually the study by Microsoft that showed that having Zoom meetings are twice as fatiguing as in-person meetings, right? So we have all these different pieces coming together and creating this giant snowball effect of like mental health issues for individuals. And that's where I think technology like the one we're building, it becomes even more important, which is, you should be, right now we're just helping individuals with focus. And that is going to help tackle some of these productivity issues where, we essentially are able to let people know, hey, you need a break right now. Like, you can't work all day like this. This is not healthy for you. There's also a do not disturb light on, so that, kids and spouses, for example, don't bother somebody when their mind is in a focused state, right? And then when it gets out of its focused state, like, hey, come by, ask them for a coffee. Like, you can be a part of their break. That social interaction can happen then, right? And so it's a form of silent communication, essentially. And so really, I think that the technology we're building is becoming even more increasingly important. Unfortunately, COVID also makes it harder to get it out to people because, manufacturing shut down, you're talking about Shanghai, so there's been a lot of supply chain issues to try to get the tech out. But every day we hear more stories of individuals who I believe we could really make a difference to with.
I love the segue in regards to COVID and not having the product come out as fast as you want to. March 2020, you own this company, you are working really hard, you're hearing the buzz, that a lot of parts of what you're creating are going to have to come from overseas. What did that do for you as an individual? What did that do for your team? And what did it do overall for the product and how it's going to roll out?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So what is traditional in Indiegogo campaigns is that you put out your product, right? You tell people it's going to be there in 6 months, and then you deliver it to them in 3 years, right? We were so adamant not to be that company. We were just like, all right, my VP he worked at Bose for 12 years. He's delivered 8 products. He integrated Alexa into headphones, so he knows about integrating new tech and new microphones and getting all that stuff going. And so we did our campaign, and we told people it's going to take a year. Like, I don't care if it hurts our sales. We're going to try to be honest. It's not going to take 6 months. Anybody who tells you it takes 6 months is just lying to you. We have everything lined up on the supply chain side. it's on our timeline, it says it's going to take about 10 months. We're going to add 2 months of buffer just in case. Like, it's going to take a year. And then the supply chain hits, and like chips aren't coming in, like all these other issues. And it's like, all right, well, crap. We thought we had added this extra buffer and put ourselves in a really good spot. And, we had these experts work on the tech. And so like the tech is working, and it's really great, and it's ready to go. It's just a matter of like, when are we going to get this stuff in so we can build it and really get it out and going? And so, it's one of these things where I look back and I'm like, I'm still proud of the fact that we made this decision, and we're trying to be honest with people. That's always something that, even if it hurts us, we try to be honest. But now it's like, man, maybe, how could we predicted so much was going to happen, right? This is very much outside of the norm, right? And re-shutdowns happening, et cetera. So to everyone listening, I promise you, we're working our butts off, and we're paying higher than normal prices to get stock in earlier to get it to you all. But that's just how it is to build something great. There's going to be unforeseen events, and you just got to pivot and deal with it.
Did you monitor your brain during this entire time? Because I would say, because I feel like I'm going to do a case study on me and the team, because so many different emotions are happening during that time, especially when you worked so hard and you did everything right. And then, of course, the most historical thing, again, last time it happened 100 years ago without technology.
Right.
And then now it's happening, and it's in your backyard. And how did you, for you personally, how did you maintain your sanity?
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I'm fortunate. I'm an incredibly even-keeled individual from I don't know how. I know that some of the team members, everyone has their moments of frustration, and basically the only thing I can tell them is, hey, like, this happens. There's things that you're in control of, and there's things you're not, right? And the things that you're not in control of, you just kind of have to not let it ever bother you. You just have to, okay, well, let's adapt the plan. It's like, that's just the mentality you have to have. And maybe it's the immigrant hustle in me, but like, whenever things get difficult, it's like, all right, I'm still not giving up, right? Like, how do we get to point B differently? Right. That's just always been my mentality. And I think that's helped me maintain a lot of health during this whole craziness that's occurred.
I love that, because I do the same thing where I have my stages where I get up at between 4:25 and 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm a morning person. It's the time that the world is quiet. My international clients are just getting to work. My American clients are still asleep. And I'm like, I have a 2-hour window of just like my happy place. Afternoon, I'm like, okay, still doing good. We're doing good. We got a lot of stuff done. I go check. By the end of the evening, I'm like, oh, I've done nothing. I'm so sad. I'm depressed. It's like that horrible moment of not just an entrepreneur's life, but just feeling that I need to do more. And during the pandemic, I think that I felt like during the pandemic, I was like nailing it, because I'm a Haitian kid. We weren't allowed to go out anyway. We weren't allowed to leave the house. So the pandemic was designed for me. But once the world started opening, I felt like I'm like, oh, I'm running. And I'm still not like catching up. I'm not catching my breath. And so I'm always curious to see like how that works for you, especially when you're trying to design a product that has to get into people's hands, especially people that bought into a crowdfunding, which they're so excited to be part of something new. They're so excited to sit there and help your mission move along. And they've probably had situations where like, my insurance will not cover me getting, I was playing a sport, I hit my head, I clearly know I have a concussion. Thank goodness for the situations with the football players where now they have to do these protocols, but insurance companies usually don't cover this stuff. And so for someone to care enough about their own well-being and to know that you're there and to buy into it, and then they're like, and the pandemic is pulling them back, it's a killer. Where do you think the industry overall, like I just tapped into it, where if it wasn't for football players, if it wasn't for kids that are in gymnastics that are falling, literally insurance companies or people would overall still wouldn't think about the most important muscle in our heart, in our bodies, the brain and the heart, most important muscles. So where do you think the industry goes from here? Technology is definitely pushing it forward. A lot of people that have concussions, a lot of people where Patriots player Aaron Hernandez perfect example when after he died, they took his brain and they're like, I go, this guy should have not been walking and talking. You know, like I go, because he was hit so many different times. You hear about the boxers. So all of that past information, we have it. We've done nothing with it. And all of a sudden, technology is moving it to the forefront. So where do we go from now? What is the future of technology with taking care of the human body? And oh, by the way, and we're living longer.
Yeah.
So putting all that context, history, all the data, technology, living longer, where do we go? In your opinion, what happens next?
Yeah. Wow, that is one hell of a question.
It's very loaded. I'm very good at sending out loaded questions.
I'm gonna definitely say a lot of controversial stuff here, but you
Do
know,
it. Do it.
I think the best conversations are that way. I think that you know, we're gonna see some major change happen because, as you know, for many years, scientists have been saying we should probably cancel all high contact sports, like just straight up, right? And in Boston, I know all the Patriots fans are going to come knock at my door in the next couple hours, you know, but now we have data that shows it, right? And I'm not saying that we should cancel them, but we really need to make some sort of change happen where we can guarantee the safety of the athletes. And most importantly, and I think this is a very toxic point of view, is that when it comes to athletes, it's really about pushing them to the very edge during a small part of their life. But we ignore the fact that life is also long. You know, it's like people say YOLO, you know, you only live once. Well, you also live pretty long too, right? And you're living longer continuously, right? And so it's not about that one moment of fame where, you know, you get the Olympic medal or you win the Super Bowl. You know, we have to think about how are these individuals going to participate later on in their lives? How are they going to, you know, what costs are going to be incurred in the future as well too? You know, what difficulties are going to happen to their well-being and to their family? And I think that we're finally getting the data, you know, from the devices that we're wearing, and wearables are going to completely change medicine. You know, just for example, your Fitbit or your Apple Watch was originally used to see how much you move during the day. Now it's being used as fall detectors for the elderly. It's being used to, you know, your heart rate sensor was being used to, you know, track your heart rate and maybe your stress levels. Now it's being used for cardiovascular complications, right? And so we're changing the world from a place where wearables provided this kind of like consumer level high perspective to something that can really be eventually used medically. And that is going to transform actually science, right? The biggest issues with science is longitudinal data. We can now get that because people are wearing their Apple Watches every single day, right? And so there's going to be huge transformation where a lot of these things that we used to kind of know, but everybody would ignore, are going to become harder to ignore. You know, we're going to see how these impacts that football players have, how each one changes their brain to a degree that, you know, may not be something they can come back from, right? There's going to be, we're going to be able to see the lifespan of every single hit and how it impacts them, right? And so I look forward to that future because I think it's empowering for people, for players, for making sure that we create a better human condition and state for everybody, where you know, and I love capitalism for many reasons, but sometimes in some areas it's abusive, right? Because what matters is winning above all else instead of winning together or winning, you know, in a way that's healthy. And I think that we're going to start to see those. And COVID did that to a certain degree too. We started seeing how many individuals were impacted differently because of COVID. And data enables us to see that.
We're going to rewind back to when you said privileged. This product is something that, and again, you know, this is, I love it because this is where I tell people I don't prepare for any interview because I know you're going to say things and I'm a dangerous 10-year-old on a good day. So I love it when you say things that just like prepare me for the next question. You said at the beginning you were privileged. I said it was a gift that you had parents that enabled you, even though you didn't have much, but they enabled you with such a curiosity. You created this product, and there are, during the pandemic, you just said it, how a lot of individuals, we watched how a lot of people were not getting data, they weren't getting food, they weren't getting funding. I mean, you saw so much disparity. We knew about it, but now you're seeing it because we're all home, we're all seeing it. Put that together with your product right now. We are seeing these individuals that are in sports. They're from the worst areas. They were gifted the ability to play a sport. They get hurt, and now they go back to where they were. They're damaged. No one's taking care of them. But we also have individuals in other countries. So technology and or your product, how does it help someone in a rural area, a poorer area, another country? You see how the vaccination is still not able to hit a lot of countries. So where we're going to be living with the pandemic forever is because they can't get the vaccination in areas where we have to literally like trucks and planes and like hills just to get to a community that has no idea what's going on. So where do you come in with knowing that this technology will help so many people, but so many people will not have access to it?
Yeah, that's a really powerful question to ask, and it's something that we
for a
think
person
about
that doesn't prepare for interviews, huh?
Right?
Look at that.
I love it. That's fire. That's fire. So what I would say is we think about this a lot, and it's going to have to happen in steps, right? Right now, getting a reliable brain-computer interface system costs upwards of $20,000. And on top of that, you need a scientist to set you up. It takes sometimes up to half an hour. The data is really hard to interpret. And so our step one, it's kind of like going back to Tesla, they made a sports car so that they could then work every car a little bit cheaper and make it more accessible, right? So we actually did start with those giant headsets, and we spent the last 3 years bringing it down cheaper and smaller continuously. Now we're at headphones, premium headphones, so $400. And $400 is significantly cheaper than $20,000, right? But part of our long-term plan is to license this technology so that it can go into other form factors that we're not necessarily fully in control of, and my goal, what I would really like, and I only share this because of my own personal experience, I'd really love to see a world where no child is, left living their entire elementary school and junior high and high school without ADHD being detected, right? And so can we bring it to the most rural areas? Probably not sometime soon, right? But by reducing the cost of the technology, by enabling people to get access to the data in a way that can, for example, scientists can use it to create systems for identifying ADHD or other issues that occur in creating biomarkers, we start to enable something that can be scaled, because right now brain-computer interfaces cannot be scaled at all. And so I see this as essentially a step one of the bigger chapter of what we want to achieve.
Nice. Golly gee, that was a well-packaged answer like that. That was good. See, that's you.
It's like I practiced it or something, but I didn't actually. So.
All right, I have two more questions. The younger you, the child that's in the classroom, the child that is like, I'm bored. I mean, it's not a trouble child, but I'm just bored. And then you elevate to where you are right now, where you are a doctor of science, of just like focusing on just the body parts, knowing that you're going to change so many worlds and as well as people's lives. What do you say to the person that has the kid that's like you? And what do you say to the person that has the idea that wants to start a business? So 2 answers for that. Like the kid in you, like I have a child and I see so much wonders in this kid. The wonders of just they see the world and they're in awe every day, but yet every single teacher is like against us. And I want to start my business. I'm ready. I was that kid and I'm ready to start, but I don't even know where to. How do you answer that question for the person that's just watching you right now?
What I would say is feed the wonders. I mean, that's what my parents did. So I'm kind of cheating and just taking their answer, but they're like, well, I was 8 years old. And the reason I got a computer was because I said I wanted one, right? Like none of my friends had computers at that time. I know for some of the listeners, they're like, what? How do we not have computers in our houses? Yeah, there was a time where not everyone had a computer. And we actually got that computer. We bought it for my uncle, essentially. And yeah, and so my parents bought it because that was what I was interested in, right? I've never had too many moments in my life where my parents kind of said like, you have to do what we want you to do. It's more like, hey, this is what you're interested in, go do more of that, right? So feed that wonder, just let them develop themselves. The goal of a parent should be to teach the values and integrity to a child, and then to let them use their energy in however way makes them passionate. Period. So that's part one. Right?
That was so nice. That was so like, really, like, I mean, if my dad was still alive and if my mom was on the phone right now, I go like, they need to talk to you, because they were like, we don't know what she's gonna do. Like, I go, my dad would come home with pamphlets. Hey, you want to join the army? Do you want to sell Cutco knives? Do you want to be a stewardess at the air? I mean, literally, they were like, they weren't feeding it. They were just scratching their head thinking, oh my God, we're gonna take care of that one forever.
And then
okay,
for
so
the
part two.
Yeah, part two. So for the person saying, I want to start a business, just go do it, like straight up, but the main thing that I would say is try to always be strategic. And the first thing that you should consider being strategic about is, how are you differentiated? Like, what makes you different? There is a lot of the same, and you'll never rise above anything, above, the noise, if you don't find some sort of differentiation. And that's what I would say is probably the most significant thing. Find a differentiation that appeals to a large enough audience, provides value to them, but just go do it at the end of the day. Like, at the very worst, you're going to have an incredible experience. You're going to learn a ton, and you're going to be such a stronger and better person at the end. So it's just totally worth it.
How many no's did you get throughout your life? The naysayers.
Too many, like thousands at this point. I have spreadsheets of people who've said no to me. So.
Can I just
not for any like revenge reasons, but like, I'll talk to, it's like I'm organizing people I want to talk to, and like, hey, this is an investor, this is a partner that I want to go talk to, and then like on the right hand, it's like, it's a board. It's like, how did the first meeting go? Do I need to reply to them? Did the opportunity go right or wrong? Yes or no? And the no's significantly outweigh the yeses by, don't worry about that.
I just recently did an interview with two guys that did from Portugal. They did a documentary about racism and how being non-Portuguese, I should say, in Portugal, it's hard when you're a startup company trying to get investment and trying to have people not look at your skin color, etc. And they were telling me how when they came, so both of them are from Western Africa, and when they came into to Portugal, and they were like, the amounts of no's. I'm like, I go, well, how many no's? They're like, I go, oh, thousands. I'm like, you mean hundreds? I go, oh, no, thousands. I'm like, I go, how did you keep going? They're like, and one of them said, and we were laughing. I'm like, I go, well, I'm a guy. We get no's all the time from the girls, so it's like we're used to it. And I'm like, you know what? Truth. I
think the reason that I'm so okay with no's is because, once again, it has to do with differentiation. If most people thought it was a great idea, it would have already been funded. There would be a ton of people already working and battling it out and trying to set the future. Uber used to be a bad idea at a certain point in time, right? Microsoft used to be a bad idea at a certain point in time. I know one of the original investors of NVIDIA, which is a video card company.
Yeah.
There was a time where, one of his analysts came to him and was like, this is a stupid idea. Why would you want to buy an extra chip for your computer? Like, that's just more money. It doesn't make sense, and like, now he's a billionaire, right? And so it's because it takes iteration to turn an idea into something that can scale and is good enough for more people. Someone has to go through that pain of figuring out how to do that. And eventually it becomes a no-brainer. And so that's at least that's what keeps me going.
I'm going to take that one little section and just like have it on my ring dial. So that way, whenever someone calls me, I just hear that one little section of what you just said. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it, because that was really good. That was so good, because I think that people, and including myself, we hear the no so often. We're like, I go, I'm going to walk away from this right now, and I'm just going to be bitter for the day. And I go, and oh look, it's raining, so I'm going to succumb the rain, the gloom. I'm just going to do it. And then I speak to you. I listen to your words, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get off the phone. I can't wait to get off the Zoom, because now I'm motivated. I'm jazzed. So I mean, again, I have one more, the last question, but I mean, thank you,
Sure.
thank you, because this was so, you're funny. We have so many of the same stories. Got great smile with great teeth. God, I love those teeth. Your hair's on point. Let's just keep going off the compliments. I'm gonna keep on going with the compliments. No, you
Likewise is all I can say. Trust me, it's been a pleasure for me too.
I mean, like, honestly, your content is your passion, your content, your family. Bravo. I mean, just bravo, bravo, bravo. Oh, wait, what does your uncle think of you now?
I mean, he's really proud of me, and he knows that the vision is going to take much longer from when I naively thought that it was going to take. We're starting, the world still hasn't accelerated how we use brain-computer interfaces. That's step one. But he's really proud of what I'm doing, and I'm really proud of him. And, I look forward to the day where the technology can cross that gap and make a difference in his life too.
Yeah, I mean, and mind you, I could have asked how your parents and your sister think what you're doing, but I go, that answer is pretty clear. But your uncle saw it. He saw it from the get-go. So I was just very curious to know, like, what is his overall like enjoyment of just watching you just go through this entire journey, which would have been so much it's just nice for me to hear, like, he's psyched.
He's one of my biggest cheerleaders, that's for sure.
Oh my God, I love it. All right, so we are at the end, and no matter how many times, and I will definitely bring, because literally, I just want you to know right now, any football player or anything that happens to the brain, I'm coming right to you. Like, I go, let's just talk this out, because I always say, why would I go to an academic and ask for what's going on when I know I'm speaking to the most amazing minds on this podcast? This is my gift, that I get to speak to you guys, and it's my gift that I am a dangerous 10-year-old on a good day. But you guys have the content that really will help us understand what's going on in real time. So I'm super psyched that this is not going to be the last time. But for now, it is the end, and I end every single conversation the same way every single time, which is, if you had a personal ask and a professional ask, anyone that's listening to you right now, what would be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask? 2 answers, please. No cheating, and you can't use the same thing.
Okay, my personal ask is, I ask everyone to personally have more empathy for one another. I think that that's actually the core root of what this technology is for. It's empathy. Right? If we can better understand ourselves, self-empathy, empathy for others, empathy for, the work of people trying to, push this technology out there as well too. So my personal ask is not only for myself, but for everyone, let's all have some more empathy. That's truly how you're going to change the world. You're going to see, and it's good for you. Like, you want to become a billionaire, have empathy, understand people's pain points, understand why it hurts them, make a world easier for other people. That brings you success, right? My professional ask is, if you're interested in this type of technology, reach out to us. We have a Discord channel. We have, my email is available in a lot of different places. Feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn. We want to understand people who are having pain. We want to understand how we can build a better product for them. Come to our offices in Boston, try out the technology yourself. The thing that we always need is more individuals to help us build the best product we can.
Wait, you're here in Boston?
We are in Boston, yeah.
But did we say that at the beginning? Did we mention that?
No,
I'm sorry. The entire time I'm like, oh, you're in Washington State. You're here? Really? Are you here?
So I grew up in Washington State, but I moved to Boston. Yeah. So
when did you move to Boston?
After grad school, so about 5 years ago.
Like, literally, like, there was a part of me that was gonna say, like, oh my God, you should like partner with people at MIT. Well, you're freaking
here. Yeah. We definitely, one of our partners is from MIT, so we're
okay.
Very
well, all right. That was funny. That was really, really funny. Ramses, thank you, and thank you. Bravo to your parents. Bravo to your sister for not being a sister that, like, I go, oh my God, that's just so dumb. Like, I go, your entire family empowered you. Bravo to your uncle. And imagine if he didn't get into the accident, where would you be now?
Imagine what?
If your uncle didn't have that accident.
I'd probably find something else I'd be really passionate about, and my parents would probably just let me do as much of that as possible. So yeah, once again, that gift, my parents, that was, no matter what, I know that they set me up for fulfilling my passion. And that, I think, is what we should all do as parents, right? So yeah.
Oh my God, it was an absolute pleasure. Again, I don't do any homework on anyone that I'm interviewing, because again, my parents taught me how to walk and talk. But also, when someone over prepares and you're not listening to the words, you're listening to you're waiting for your questions, and everything you said, they interlocked. I mean, this is why I want to hear about your story before I hear about your company. It doesn't make sense until I hear about who you are, and your entire life literally brought you to this point. I mean, it's amazing. It's just, and your passion, the way that you're articulating your answers. I mean, everything about you is just like literally, as you would say, on fire.
Appreciate it. Well, your energy is infectious too. So, this could not have been as fun as without you. So if I ever need to reach out for some energy, expect an
always
email.
here.
Just give me some hype,
I always tell people, like, if you need a little booster, I'm better than coffee. I'm better than coffee.
I love it.
Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you. You too.